Countdown cards are a great way to help students who have trouble stopping an activity. So I use these in my classroom on the playground, and you can see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. The way these works, you tear off the number as it's done. I had a student who had a hard time leaving the playground, so at the end of recess, she could slide 5 more times, or sometimes her countdown cards only had 3 more times. So as she would come down the slide, she would tear off the 3, then she would tear off the 2, then she would tear off the 1, and then we were at stop. So it gave us a way for her to stop that activity and transition very nicely to the next activity, which was going back into the building. So these can be used for a lot of different things. You might think about the things in your classroom that you're counting down and you're just saying the words. This just gives you a nice way to visually represent that countdown. And the cool thing about it is I made these out of a couple of strips of construction paper, which is the yellow background, and I cut apart some little index cards and just wrote the numbers on. So very low cost, very easy to make. These are great examples of just mini schedules. I've gotten on the schedule. I know it's time to brush my teeth, and now I need sort of a task analysis of the steps for brushing my teeth. So squeeze toothpaste onto your brush, hold brush under the tap, just this individual steps so I can check them off. On this example, I'm going to check them off as I go. A lot of times I would laminate these or put these in a little slip cover that my kids could use a dry erase marker on if it was something we were going to be using over and over. So something simple, nice visual support that puts those steps for brushing your teeth or going to the bathroom broken down into mini steps. So I get more information on all of the things that I need to remember to do. Visual schedules, another great visual support. I use a calendar or a schedule every day practically to know where I'm supposed to be at and what I need to be doing. This example on the left side here, I spotted in, I think, a kindergarten classroom in Madison County. It's just a really good example of a whole class schedule. It's up there for everyone to see. It's not oriented towards a specific student, but it's just got both words and some pictures, and it has the time. Here's when things need to be happening. This can be used by adults and kids alike. So I really like a good whole class schedule. And we see these a lot. I see these a lot in early elementary and pre-K classes. They kind of go away as students get older. So something to think about for our older students. They may need a class schedule, especially if it's a class that has a specific pattern and routine in it, things that we're going to do every day. The second example on the screen on the right side is a morning routine. This is a visual schedule of waking up. So this is going to be used at home. So they're going to wake up, they're going to water the dog, and it goes through their morning steps before they get on the bus. The nice thing about this is that the tabs fold down. So you're not having to take pictures on and off. It cuts down on losing the pictures. And the way that the student is manipulating it is that they are just folding down the little tab. This is actually made out of just a piece of cardstock, a single piece of cardstock paper, and you just kind of on the right side of it, you're going to cut some squares. You're going to kind of cut some squares out that can be folded down into tabs. I really like this type of schedule, just because less chance I'm going to be losing the pictures. This visual schedule is a combination of pictures, which we kind of see along the bottom here, and words. You can see the first activity is reading, and then they gave more specific instructions for reading. So those might be adult instructions. They might also be instructions that's written specifically for the student. I thought this was a great option for students that have a lot of things going on. So they know that it's reading, but they also need some more specific instruction. And the nice thing is they've used some little old school film canisters, if you can still find those, to be the containers to put the finished. Over here we see a little finished bucket. So when reading is finished, they'll pull it off the board and stick it into the finished bucket. So just another option for what a visual schedule could look like. So a couple more schedule examples. This schedule on the left is just written on an index card. I've had a few situations in which the teacher didn't know what the schedule would be that day. I had a student going down to a science classroom, and they didn't always know exactly what the day would look like. So she could just quickly write down what he needed to do on an index card. I just kept her supplied with index cards, and he knew to just draw a line through them, and we could toss them out. It was something cheap, quick, and easy that really made a difference for that particular student in being able to be included in that class. This is another visual schedule on the right. We've got green at the top for this is what's happening first. We've got red for this is kind of what's happening next. And at the bottom, it had some examples of what do they need. They need help, they need a hug, they need a break. The student needed a little bit simpler schedule, but it worked great. So schedules can look like 1,000 different things, at least that many, and can be used in so many different ways. But there are several great options out there to think about when we're thinking about what do we pick for our student? What does this look like? So we're thinking about what is their current skill level, what's going to work best for them, how are they going to use this schedule, where are they going to use this schedule, will it travel with them, will it be stationary in one single classroom? Just some simple things to kind of get you started thinking about how would I use schedules with my students. They're a great tool to teach. First Then boards is another visual support that I do see out in classrooms, but sometimes I see it being used as a schedule. It's really meant to be used as a motivator. So we're trying to get students to do things that we want them to do, and I have to teach First Then boards. So usually I would do something called a preference assessment. I'm going to find out what is the student motivated to work for, and then if I'm teaching this, I'm going to pick 2 highly preferred activities. So I'm going to start out with, say the student likes iPad and the student likes computer. So I'm going to first go to iPad and then go to computer, because I'm teaching them that good things happen when they see this board. Same thing with visual schedules. For some students, I would start my year out with lots of fun things on the schedule. I don't want the schedule to necessarily be a bad place that students go, and I'm teaching them how to use it. So we've got to think about that with First Then boards. We've got to start out with activities that students are motivated to do. And then I'm going to start adding in activities that students are less motivated to do. So eventually I'm going to say first math, then YouTube, or in this example of this visual support, first table work, then YouTube on this side. Just something to know. If it's not working well, then you may have to go back to teaching how to use it. So starting out with those preferred activities in the beginning, and maybe that just lasts a day or two. Maybe it just lasts for part of a day for some students. They might be fine with that. You just have to know your student. And this example on the left side of the screen is an object First Then. So first the student needs to stop in the restroom, and then the activity looks like a book. So then they're going to read a favorite book. Just know that First Then board's not particularly meant to be a schedule. It's really meant to be more of a motivational thing, meant to be a motivator. Another type of visual support to think about, and one I think at least I do think less often about when I'm thinking about visual supports, are graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are a great tool to use with our students of all abilities, but especially for our students who need things to be structured a little bit more visually. So there are 1,000 different kinds of graphic organizers out there, and these both came from Teachers Pay Teachers and were freebies if you want to go back and look them up. But I like this because it can be used for math, it can be used for science, language arts. Graphic organizers come in a lot of sizes, shapes, and colors. So just thinking about what you're trying to teach and how to make that information more visually and more organized. A graphic organizer is a great place to start. As our students get older and move up in grades, late elementary school, middle school, high school, one of the important things that school teaches them is how to take notes. And I really like Cornell Notes. So these are just some examples of different ways that you can do it. The way that Cornell Notes work a little bit differently from your standard notes of just writing down everything that the teacher puts up on the screen is that it teaches students on the sort of this left-hand side of the paper, you're putting what was the question or what is the main ideal, and then you are talking about that out here on the right-hand side. You kind of put your notes with it. So it organizes it just slightly different. So over here you can see acute angle and then the definition. So it just gives it a little bit more visual representation. This is a great example of how to modify Cornell Notes. Many times we're asking students to take notes, but multitasking, so I need to listen to the teacher, I need to look at the screen, I need to write down notes, is overwhelming, especially when we're asking them to take several pages of notes. So in this example, on the left-hand side, you see the whole page of notes that would be put up on the screen. The teacher's going to reveal this, but for the students, they're given notes to where they're just filling in part of the information. So they're just kind of putting in some of the information instead of trying to take all of this notes. They're just filling in the blanks on that left-hand side. So it helps them to key into the important information. They are still taking notes like their peers, but they have a little bit of assistance in not needing to fill in so much information. This is great for kids with ADHD. This is great for kids who have fine motor issues or dysgraphia, people who have smaller hands, and making handwritten notes very difficult for them to take. Then this is something to think about for them. And this came from this particular website right here. And I really like this example. So just a thought. Here are a list of resources. I didn't put as many as I normally would for visual supports because there are 1,001 places to find free visual supports out there, but these two are probably my favorite. So on the bottom is Victories in Autism. They have several different things and it's all free. Many different types of visual supports, including the ring prompt cards from earlier, and ocali.org, their gallery of interventions. They have several different types of visual supports that are free and can be used by anyone. So just a couple of places. I'm sure you probably know already a few free visual supports, and if not, feel free to contact me and I can help put you into connection with some other things. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at this email address. I do try to make sure that I respond. There are 1,000 things with visual supports that I didn't get to talk about, but I do feel like this is a baseline evidence-based practices that many classrooms will benefit from. So thank you for your time and have a good afternoon.